Hi, everybody, and welcome to Owning Your Personal Brand. I am really excited about our show today. We have a wonderful guest in Heather Chandler, and we're going to be talking about branding in the gaming industry. And one of the things, as I've been talking to Heather over the years, is how much the gaming industry has changed as it relates to women. Historically, women were a very small part of this male dominated industry, but over the past several years, we have seen a lot of growth and a lot of change as far as the industry being more inclusive and really catering more to women, trying to get them more involved in this industry. So I'm really excited to talk to Heather, learn about her background, her experience, and also her insights on how gamers and female gamers and those interested in the gaming industry can work on their personal brand. So, Heather, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Amy. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
So, share first a little bit about yourself. As I mentioned to you before, I'm very curious how you got into this industry, and also would love for you to share kind of the things you're working on now.
Okay. So I've been working in the game industry for over 25 years. It is an industry that I love. My role has mainly been, I like to say I'm a fun finder. So I'm basically a video game producer, but I work with teams to help them find the fun in the game ideas that they want to make and bring to life. So I started my career at Activision, and then I've worked at Ubisoft, Electronic Arts, and I was also at Epic Games for 3.5 years as the senior producer on Fortnite. I've worked with a ton of independent game studios. I've worked with educational games, with games that want to have an impact for a cause. I've done pretty much everything. I've released games on every platform imaginable, including the original PlayStation. And my journey has just taken me from team to team, helping people find the fun, shape that idea, and turn it into a game. And it is not something that I planned as far as how did I get into the industry. I had graduated from college and I was living in California, and I was applying to various places, for that first big job out of college. And I ended up at Activision. And when I started working there, I was lowest person on the totem pole, a production assistant. But I got sort of the on the job education of how you make video games. And when I realized that games were a combination of technology, entertainment, and most importantly, the people who make them, it was a really great fit for what I was looking for in a job. And I just kind of stuck with it because every day I would go in and learn something. I'd get to work on some really exciting projects. I met people that were very smart and bright and all had a lot of passion and enthusiasm for everything that they did. And so that's basically how I got into the industry.
Nice. And then what about what you're doing now? Kind of how all of that learning that you took advantage of, by the way, a lot of people forget that. Like just because you have a job where you might be the low man on the totem pole or low woman on the totem pole doesn't mean you can't observe and learn so that you can grow. What are you doing now?
So right now, I have a company called Heather Makes Games, and basically I'm a fun finder, and I work with any type of people who want to make a game, and that includes video games, board games, escape rooms. My husband and I own a physical escape room here in Apex, North Carolina, and basically a team will bring me on board. I work with a lot of independent teams that are starting their journey to bring their idea to life, and I help them figure out what's the core of the idea. Let's get a prototype up and running. I help them find funding and basically just provide whatever service I can outside of actually programming, making art, or actually doing game design. Those are not my top skills, but I certainly know how to bring all those elements together to help people figure out what they want to do. And we've done it. I've done it for corporate things, people who want to have like a gamified team building thing with, all sorts of things.
Nice. Well, I can attest to the escape room because we did our team building for Creative Allies there, and it was a lot of fun. I am very competitive and have lots of competitive people on my team, so we had a good time.
Oh
we had a
yeah,
good
and I remember when you guys did it. You guys were really good because I think you said that not a lot of people had done it before,
no,
but your
no.
team just went right in and
It was
Actually, I think
great.
Escape was 0 hints. Am I correct on
I
that?
think so. Yeah, it was and within the time limit. Like it was fun. It was a lot
It
of
was a triumph.
fun. So let's move into talking about, personal branding for the gaming industry. Why is that important in this industry?
Well, in the game industry, there's so many people that are involved in a variety of different ways. You have the game developers, you have game publishers, you have gamers, you have Twitch streamers, you have, people who play on YouTube playthroughs and things like that. And so, in order to really make yourself stand out and to really promote the content that you're excited about, having a personal brand and then building on that and being consistent is really important because that is how people can find you. So if you are streaming Minecraft or Japanese RPGs or you're making these types of games, by having a brand, it can make it easier for people to realize that you're the sort of person who's making the content that they're interested in engaging with.
Yeah. Which is interesting because one of the things or one of the reasons I love this topic, it really applies to everyone. And so even though what you said is very specific to a certain industry, it's really for everybody because whatever your industry is, if you want people to find you or need people to find you, whether you run a business, whether you're looking for a job, you have to have that brand. You have to be able to develop it and stand out amongst other people. So I appreciate that for sure. But in gaming specifically, or in this industry, style and personality really go a long way, especially with people who are the actual gamers. So talk a little bit about that and how people can set themselves apart and why that part of it is kind of unique a little bit to this industry because it's entertaining, like it's a little bit entertaining, but
Yeah.
how the brand helps bringing out whatever personality or style you might have.
Well, certainly for people who are Twitch streamers or do playthroughs on YouTube, the ones that have the most distinct brands usually pick a game genre that matches well with the personality and what they like to do. And so they're very well versed and kind of experts at that game. They also have a good understanding of what it is to create an entertaining gameplay. So they're not just kind of sitting there like most people when I sit and play a game, I'm just very intense. I'm concentrated on the screen. My face is kind of like, okay, I'm going to get this done. Whereas people, who play it, for other folks, they are very engaging. They're able to kind of talk about what it is they're doing. They have really fun reactions. And so you get very excited to see, oh, how are they going to react to this game? And so if they pick, content and have a knowledge and passion for what they want to do, that really helps them stand out. And then, of course, you'll see each person has sort of their unique little something. There's a Twitch streamer I know that wears rabbit ears, so it's those little things like that that really are unique. Oh, yeah, I know who she is. I've watched her before. Or the guys who do, there's a guy, I can't remember his name right now, wears a very specific costume when he does his things and has kind of an alternate personality from what he's actually like in real life.
Got it. And so, what about the folks who are less in front and those individuals that might want to be the creators of the games or get a job in the industry like you started out? How do they go about taking their personality and incorporating it, whether it's into the game or just into being known so they can interview well, they can get hired for some of those early jobs?
Yeah, I think that you bring up a very interesting point because I meet people quite frequently. Oh, I would love to work in the game industry, but I don't know exactly what I would do. And I think that's where a personal brand can kind of come in and help you figure out what that might be. So if you are not necessarily trained as a programmer or do digital art, there are all kinds of jobs that you can do, being a producer, a community manager, working in the marketing department. So I think for people who are looking to kind of shape what that might look like for them, first they need to kind of figure out what aspect of working in the game industry seems most suitable to my current skill set. And then once they figure that out, they can kind of figure out, well, how can I exude that as part of my personal brand when I go and talk to these people. So, for example, I'll just give some extreme examples. Like you can spot a video game artist kind of a mile away. Video game artists tend to have, a lot of tattoos, very interesting hairstyles. usually some sort of notepad or sketch pad with them. And so that in a way is kind of our brand. Now, whether they realized it or not, that's sort of like the brand that they have come up with. And the same with computer programmers. You will see them usually are less flashy than the artists. So, just definitely they are not there to be visually, you know, uh, stand out visually. But I mean, I don't want to, but people they've got the glasses, the button-down shirt, maybe the khakis, or sometimes shorts, flip-flops, t-shirts, things like that. So it's different ways you can kind of communicate sort of what your role on the game is through your brand. Marketing people, of course, um, look more corporate in a way. So they might wear suits or more business casual, things like that. I'd say as a producer, for my personal brand as a producer, I always wore, just sort of very business casual sorts of things, because you want to strike the right balance of like, yes, I know how to get this project done and get everything organized and make sure that this all happens, but also remain approachable for your teammates so they don't just look at you as some sort of corporate suit that's spying on them and whatnot. And I think too that is then reflected in how you approach these companies with your resume. So, I look at a lot of resumes for people that are applying to the game industry, and of course, there's the formal traditional way to do a resume. But I think in the gaming industry, there's a little bit more latitude with how you want to present yourself. Do you want to have fun graphics? Do you want to have a fun photo of yourself? Do you want to try to experiment with the layout because you're an artist? You also want to think about what you wear to a job interview. I have actually had several interesting conversations with people on the game development team because someone showed up in a suit and tie for an interview for a position on the game development team. And in their mind, they're like, why would they ever do this? That is very off-putting, and that's not what our culture is. But I think sometimes you have to understand that when someone is interviewing for a job and they're not exactly sure what they're supposed to wear, that a suit and tie certainly is not the worst choice in the world.
Right, right.
So all these sort of little things. And I think you can figure out sort of like what brand might fit you by, watching Twitch streamers and kind of seeing what they're doing, looking at interviews with various game developers that worked on some of your favorite games, and kind of get an understanding of what might work.
Yeah. Well, I love that example because first impressions are so important. And, on the one hand, you might have a candidate who's trying to put their best foot forward. So they dress up. And then you have the people at the company like, what are they doing? Like they wouldn't fit here type thing. So, yeah, branding is about making sure that you're making the right impression for people because you only get that one chance for them
Mhm.
to see you for the first time, hear you for the first time, what have you. I like the fact that you have more latitude in this industry when looking for work and can be more creative in how you present yourself. So that's really interesting as well. Now let's move on to some money, right? How can your brand, your personal brand help you monetize whether it is you're a gamer and you have a channel or something like that, or if you're doing consulting work like what you're doing, like what are some different ways that you can monetize some of your content as someone in the gaming industry?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways. I mean, the most obvious one, just from an individual standpoint, is to be a Twitch streamer, right? That is somebody who has their channel, they're building up that brand, they're picking the content, they are, streaming it, figuring out what they want to do and what cadence they're doing it. And if they are able to develop a branded persona that is appealing and grows in popularity, that is definitely a good way to do that. And I think with Twitch streaming and the technology we have today, that's actually anybody can get up and start that channel, right? It's the question of there's a difference between, hey, I'm going to start a Twitch channel versus, hey, I have a plan for how I'm going to do this and sort of what persona I'm going to do, because as you pointed out, it is entertainment. I think within the game industry, as people are out there looking for the game development positions or positions at game companies, it is about, for me, like I said, I'm a producer, I'm a fund finder. It has taken me a while to kind of figure out like that's what my brand is, because as a consultant, I have to go out there and people need to understand how I can help them. Because if you say game development consultant, that's kind of like, well, I'm not exactly sure what that means because it could mean anything. But if you say fund finder and, working with teams or product, producer, people get an understanding that you're there to help shape and manage a team and get something out to launch.
Got it. No, that's good. Well, I like the title Fun Finder. So I think if you work in an industry where you can pick titles like that, I think that's pretty good.
That's true.
So back to females in this industry. What are some advice you would give to people, regardless of which area they might be interested in? But as you mentioned before, they just know they want to be in the industry, but they don't know where to get started. So what advice would you give people like that?
Yeah, I would definitely, as you pointed out at the beginning, the game industry is inviting females and all different diversity into the conversation now. And so I would say you need to find a mentor. Like I'm a big advocate of finding mentors or finding people that are doing what you want to do and then contacting them. And then if you do get your foot in the door, I remember when I started at Activision, I just asked a ton of questions. So I took advantage of the learning opportunity, and I have found that most people are very willing to answer questions. You have to hit them at the right time. Like, don't go where they're clearly in the middle of trying to get something done for a deadline, but take them to lunch. Or if they are doing something, when they have their door open, I would walk by and there would be an artist kind of working on something. And I'd be like, oh, wow, what it is you're doing. People love talking about the things that they do, and they love being helpful and answering questions. And so I would say as you're trying to figure out if this place is for you, there's all kinds of different types of YouTube channels out there about game development. There's Twitch streamers, and you'd be surprised that, if you reach out to these people, how many of them might respond back with a little bit of advice or even willing to sit and chat with you for a few minutes. And then once you do get your foot in the door, look around for the people that can be your support and allies. That is very important as you're trying to grow your career. And, let people know what it is you're interested in doing. When I started at Activision, I remember my boss said, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, well, I'm really interested in being a producer and running a team. And he's like, great. He's like, it'll probably take you, 4 to 5 years to get to that level of experience. So while you're doing it, go read these books, get knowledgeable about the game industry from a business perspective, play these games, talk to these people. And so you can start doing all of those things. And if you find people that can give you that advice, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. No, that a lot of good points there that you mentioned. So mentorship is absolutely critical. And I think what you said is true. Most people are very open and willing to share with you and provide you with guidance, but most people don't ask. And so you have to be proactive. Like, people are not just going to find you and ask you if you need help. Like, you have to go out there and ask. But I would say the majority of people you reach out to, like you said, if you get them at the right time, they're going to share because somebody did that for them. And most
Mhm.
people realize that and say they want to help kind of the next person. So the mentorship piece is great. I think being proactive is the other one. You had a boss that asked you
Yeah.
what, where you wanted to be in 5 years, which is fantastic. But even if someone doesn't ask you, make sure you have that plan in your mind so that you can then know where to find things, or who to ask based on what you want to do. So I think that's really, really great advice. So I appreciate everything that you shared with us today about, personal branding in the gaming industry. What are you working on now that you'd like to share with people?
Well, as I mentioned before, I own an escape room with my husband in Apex, and it's a physical escape room, but now we're working on an escape at home experience. And it's our most ambitious project to date, aside from actually building out the 4 escape rooms. It's a Kickstarter, or we're kickstarting the project. It's called Gateways and Griffins. And it is all the fun of an escape room and a role playing game in one box, where you solve riddles. And then once you've done that, you can then use the materials to have a role playing experience. This game was developed with the intent of bringing people together to have fun in person. And then once they'd solved all the puzzles, we were like, but now what if you still want to play and engage in that world? So that is why we have that role playing aspect, because with Stranger Things and young, kids, middle school kids and high school kids becoming more interested in role playing games, we wanted to figure out a way to bring parents into that conversation as well, or providing kind of a role-playing game that would be pretty simple, I think, for a family to kind of figure out together and have some fun and use their imaginations. And it's called Gateways and Griffins. It's on Kickstarter now. And yeah, we'd love for people to support it and tell others about it.
Wonderful. Do you have a planned launch date for this game?
So the Kickstarter ends on July 21st.
Okay.
And then for people who are not familiar with how Kickstarter works, it's a crowdfunding platform, and you basically pledge or pre-order the game. And if the game meets its funding goals, then everyone is charged their pledge. And then after the game meets the goals, our timeline is that we plan to deliver the product in January of 2023. So you
Okay.
do have to wait a little bit, but it is going to definitely be worth the wait.
Nice. Well, very good, and good luck with that. It sounds fun. Like I said, going to the escape room was a lot of fun. So I can imagine, especially as we start to move out of the pandemic, I think people have found ways to spend more time with family and do things like this at home. So
Yep.
hopefully they can continue that with something like this. So I appreciate that. Now let's talk about how can people find you? You are definitely someone open to conversation, open to giving advice, but how can people find you?
LinkedIn's the best way. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and that's how I communicate with people. So you can definitely check me out there. And if you're interested in the Kickstarter, I do have the link in my LinkedIn if you want to check that out.
Perfect. Well, Heather, thank you so much again for joining me today. And I appreciate all of the advice and insights that you've shared with personal branding for people interested in or already in the gaming industry. And as always, I believe strongly that everyone has a brand, and it's really up to you to make sure you own it so that someone else does not do that for you. So, owning your personal brand is something that everybody should focus on, no matter what age you are, no matter what industry you're in. You really should focus on that to help you make that great first impression, but also help you stand out in the crowd of your peers. Thank you again for joining us. We will be back next week with another show.
Thank you.